Warning, this episode contains graphic language, depictions of death, poor political maneuverings, creepy teen love, and as always, teen angst. Also, there will be spoilers for the first 5 chapters of Eldest, Book 2 of the Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. Listen at your own risk.
Is this a podcast, or is this just fantasy? We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. So join us if you want to nerd out. Time to start the podcast and see. Anyway, here's the show.
Hello, readers. I'm Dane Patterson, the host who, unlike a certain character in this book, is a responsible bean farmer. I built my entire house by hand before asking my wife to marry me. No blood feuds here, Jackie.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm Jackie Lanier, and is this a podcast or is this just fantasy? The podcast where we might be convinced to swear fealty to someone, but only if it's like kind of sneaky.
That's absolutely true. If you are here after the first season, welcome back. And if you just jumped in at Eldest, we're happy to have you, but you might want to read the first book, you goofball. Get out of here.
Okay, I have a pretty good recap lined up in a minute here, so it might be just fine. Enough in the recap to skip 10 episodes of our bad jokes. I think it's good, yeah.
All right, that's fair. You do good work, Jax. If you would like to support us on Patreon, there is a link in the show notes. If you can't or just don't want to, we totally understand. I just ask that you please rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You get bonus points this week if you can somehow mention the word eldest in your review. You can also check us out on our social media at Is This Just Fantasy Pod or on TikTok or at Just Fantasy Pod on Insta and Twitter.
Yes, and don't worry, everybody. Our very cool website, isthisjustfantasypod.com, has made it through the changing of the seasons. It's still there on the internet for you to find all the episodes and bonus content from season 1, as well as our sweet merch.
Yeah.
I do want to take just a hot second to describe in this audio medium what Dane and I are wearing. We are sporting our tracksuit jackets that I made. They're so cool. They're all over print. There's a full tracksuit if you want, or just the jacket, or just the pants. It's black and white and yellow, and it's dope. You should get one. You'd match us. It'd be cool.
Super cool. Also, it's been on the table for most of the first season, but our water bottles look pretty cool too. So.
Yes, I think that's right.
You want to do a recap?
Of course I want to do a recap. The content machine demands it, Dane. I just want to do like the briefest of overviews, truly as brief as possible for me, on the first book of the Inheritance Cycle before we start Eldest. So start your timer. I think I really can make this fast. Are you ready?
Like a dwarf at a beer tasting, I am focused and possibly a little drunk, but I'm focused.
You're the worst, but see if you can keep up.
Okay.
Slightly drunk Dane. Okay, so fade in. Teenage bean farmer Kevin is living his best small town life when his mountain hunt is interrupted by the explosive appearance of a mysterious hollow blue gemstone, the size and shape of a very large egg. What could it be?
What could it be?
Turns out it's an egg. It hatches into a baby blue dragon that Aragon raises in secret and names Saphira after he realizes that you're a she. But something is amiss in Carvajal because after Aragon's cousin brother, Roran, leaves town to make some money, the creepiest motherfuckers alive, the Rozak, come around asking all the wrong questions about Aragon's stone. And Aragon and Saphira are ratted out by the town butcher and resident asshole Sloan.
He's the worst.
Oh, he's the worst. So they flee into the mountains just long enough for the Rozak to burn down Aragon's family farm and fatally injure his father/uncle Garrow. Reeling from the death of his questionably written father figure, Aragon vows revenge on the Rozak and gets the hell out of town with Brom, the guy nobody could ever have suspected might be more than the old town storyteller. So our new buddy cop duo, Arabrom, track the Rozak across the empire of Alagaesia with a rapidly growing dragon in tow, seeing entire villages of dead bodies piled into a mountain, fighting the monstrous Urgles who perpetrated that attack, training in swordplay and freaking magic, because of course the storyteller is also a badass warrior and a wizard.
Of course.
And hearing plenty about the good old king of the empire, Galbatorix, who is just verifiably an insane murder wizard that definitely wants Aragon and Severa under his control. So he seems like a cool guy.
We were against him the whole time of the podcast.
One of us was. When the trail starts to run cold on the Rozak, Erebrom and Saphira hatch a plan to follow the money of some expensive oils those creepy fucks use as a calling card, which takes our crew to the seaside hamlet of Tierm to meet Brom's long-lost and rich as hell friend Jode.
In classic rich guy fashion, Joe's marriage is on the rocks.
That's true. Very important to note. And after Brom teaches Aragon to read in exactly 1 week, our guys go full Ocean's 3, infiltrating the fortress, stealing some shipping records, and deducing the Rozak must be in the spooky city of Dros Leona. So Erebrom and Saphira hit the road once again, with Brom continuing to school Aragon to become a fully fledged blade master, a powerful magician, and hopefully someday not as much of a Kevin. Because Kevin's always going to Kev, he gets lured into a trap by the Rozak in Dros Leona's Nightmare Cathedral, and after a harrowing chase through the city, Erebrom make it back out into the hills only to be ambushed by the Rozak in their camp that night. A mysterious stranger comes to their rescue, chases the Rozak off, but not before Brom jumps in front of a final dagger thrown at Aragon. Brom succumbs to this mortal wound, but not before finally admitting that he was just a bit more than a storyteller, namely a whole-ass dragon rider who fought against Galbatorix's genocide of his fellow riders and slew the first, last, and strongest of Gal's rider pals named Morzan. So pour one out for Brom, because Aragon is in deep shit without him.
Revenge plot intensifies.
Yes. We're going to have to be doing so much more to get revenge on so many more evil people. So Aragon and Saphira bury Brom in a diamond tomb and proceed to hit the road again to find Brom's allies in the rebel faction, the Varden. But this time, they have a brooding and mysterious teen on the run from the law to accompany them.
Ooh.
Murtagh is everyone's favorite bad boy, especially Dane's.
Yeah.
And he really is the MVP of this trip and prison break, this trip to and prison break from the city of Gilead.
Yep.
Murtagh and Aragon become the bestest of sword bros on the road before Aragon gets ambushed outside of Gilead, waiting to meet one of Brom's friends. He wakes up in a prison, drugged, disoriented, and with the fourth major head wound of his young life. But he feels like the luckiest bean farmer in the world because the super hot elf he's been sleep scrying is also in this prison. And it doesn't hurt that he has a badass friend and a freaking dragon to bail him out of jail.
It does help.
Yes, Murtagh and Saphira rescue Aragon and his dream girl. Her name turns out to be Arya, after a showdown with the big bad prison warden, the shade named Durza. And the chase is on. The sword bros and Saphira, with an unconscious Arya in tow, traverse entirely too much of the Empire with an army of Urgals hot on their trail to find the Varden's sweet hideout deep in the Bior Mountains. They naturally make it just in the nick of time. What other time is there to make it? And everything after that is very fun and chill. Except for, I guess, the fact that the Varden is a political quagmire of dwarves, soldiers, magicians, and elves, led by our new favorite Zaddy, Ajahad.
Yeah.
And Murtagh is immediately imprisoned upon arrival because it turns out he's the son of Morzan and was raised in Galbatorix's shadow.
You can't get any more edgier, can you?
No, not at all. But we really don't have time to dwell on that because after just a couple of days of rest for our crew, the mountain fortress is under attack from all those freaking Urgals with the shade Durza as their leader. A fierce and bloody battle ensues at the gates of the city mountain Trondheim, and just when it looks like all is going to be lost, Aragon gets the assist from Arya and Saphira to defeat Durza with a hail of shattered gemstone and a stab through the heart. The armies of Urgals descend into chaos, and the Varden and the dwarves are victorious. But before you start thinking this book ends on a high note, Aragon has been horribly disfigured and low-key possessed by the Shade's evil spirits, and he's only able to reclaim his mind and body with the help of a vast and powerful consciousness that calls itself the Morning Sage or the Cripple who is whole. And we get it. You're mysterious. And as we fade out of book one, Aragon is promising to go find his new ally to complete his training in the elven city of Elismira. Did I do it?
Congratulations. You did it, man. That was so good.
Oh, thank you. I was very nervous. I'm sweating a little bit.
You did. Well, it might be the tracksuit.
It's not the tracksuit. The tracksuit is airy and breathable, Dane.
Oh, sorry. Well, are you ready? We're about to start a new adventure.
Yes.
There's so much to be excited about. We get a Roran POV like right out the gates this week, and I'm loving his perspective, and I'm stoked to be back in Alagaesia already. Alagaesia?
That's
already. It's rocket.
Yeah.
But also, I'm glad we can escape in this book. It's been like keeping my life light and happy and airy while the world is going absolutely bonkers. But anyway, how you doing, man? Did you get enough time alone from me?
I mean, that's kind of a loaded question, Dane. If I got close to what I would consider, I think, like enough time alone from anybody, not just you.
Yeah.
I think if I got that much time, you'd start sending people to my house for welfare checks.
You are very cat-like.
I'm a solitary creature. Yeah. But that's more about me for a different time. I'm excited to get this book started. I think between rereads, I'd forgotten how quickly into Eldest we get Roran's POV. Like, for whatever reason, I was like halfway through the book we meet Roran, but no, today, this episode. I know he's one of both of our like favorite characters in the series, so totally. I'm stoked to finally get into his chapters. Cannot wait, truly. You ready to start? Chapter summaries?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into the chapter summaries. That takes us to chapter 1, A Twin Disaster. We come back to our heroes in this badass hollow fucking volcano husk mountain that is Trondheim.
Best.
Only 3 days from when we left off in book 1.
Yes.
Our hero Aragon has been having trouble like because he has these terrible pains coming from his newly scarred back, where he got slashed by good old Durza the Shade.
Ugh.
And the weird part is that no one seems to know why he's having back pains, because his wound seems fine other than the scar it's left.
Yes, it's like psychosomatic kind of.
Yeah, and like even the magic MRI scans they've been doing are showing nothing, so it's super scary. Aragon is being called the most metal as hell name of all time, Shade Slayer.
Yes.
How cool. Aragon Shade Slayer.
It's maybe too cool for the bean farmer, but it's perfect.
But he's been calling that by the people of the Varden after he killed Durza. Important people are bowing to him now, which is new. Jax, he has street cred finally.
I know.
Like our white, rich, male protagonist is being treated with the respect he finally deserves.
Oh, right. Yeah, there is justice in this world.
And as the recovery efforts after the battle are in full swing, Aragon starts to struggle with the horrors of war, the dead and dying.
The what?
The horrors. The horrors.
The rural juror.
The rural jurors. Let's take that again. No? Okay. The dead and dying, the mortally wounded, the screams of those who like have lost people.
Oh, should we not be laughing anymore?
I know. Like, I feel bad. The wails of the like people.
Widows.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. That's how this book like really opens.
Yeah, it is. Really dark.
It's pretty dark. While Aragon reflects on those cheery thoughts, we find out that Ajahad has been all worked up because it turns out Nasawada did not leave Trondheim with the other women and children, and instead disguised herself and fought in the battle.
Yeah, dude, she's so badass. I love it that even though like she's clearly a badass, she fought in the war. Yeah. Like, she seems like she's still going to get a stern talking to from her dad.
Yeah.
It's like, we love a relatable girly. I feel that. I've been there.
Yeah. It's not over the top. It's like a perfect balance. It's kind of nice. So pretty much as soon as they recover from the battle, Ajahad, Murtagh, and the twins, and also a group of soldiers, have been out hunting pockets of retreating Urgals over the last 3 days and are going to be returning at the start of this chapter. And so we have Aragon meeting up with Arya and Ulrich to wait for the king and company's return.
Yeah.
Aragon is weird about Arya, obvi.
Yes. He's got no other way to be.
He's just got no chill. All hell breaks loose, though, just as Ajahad and his crew are coming back. Aragon and company can just see their very hunky leader and rebel daddy with our bad boy Murtagh when, boom, they're ambushed by an Urgal.
No!
I know, it's so sad. And for once, Aragon doesn't use his magic from so far away. Help, Jax! He's learning!
He's finally not like, oh, what I should do is cast a spell from a mile away that will probably drain me of energy and kill me.
He actually goes, can't do that, too far.
Yeah.
Nice.
Incredible. Maybe the Shade spirits have knocked some sense into him.
It's the Shade, it's not him.
Yeah.
No head wounds this episode? Maybe this season?
You think?
The over-under?
Bad. I don't know how betting works, so I don't really know what over-under means.
Should we have a bet anyway?
For how many head wounds this book?
How many times let's just say how many times did he pass out?
Oh, shit. Pass out. At like bare minimum 5 plus.
5 plus. So you're going at the over 5. You're like would be a win.
Yes.
I'll take the under on that.
Okay.
Under 5.
I'm over 5.
I've got faith in you, Aragon. Instead, he flies over as fast as he can. But by the time Aragon and the team get there, Ajahad is badly wounded. And the Urgles are gone with Murtagh and the twins.
No.
Murtagh,
your boy.
I know. And a badass side note, Ajahad did bring down 5 Urgles, which is dope.
Yes, I think it's like his body is laying there when Aragon comes on it, and there are just like 5 gutted Urgles surrounding him, and it's like, well, shit.
He's so cool. Idris Elba would be great for this guy. Ajahad dies because he's too injured to be saved with magic. He does say his last words to Aragon, and quote, he says, "One last command. You must promise that you won't let the Varden fall into chaos." This is the opening of the book.
Dad.
I know.
Dad, no.
Come on. So Arya is freaking out and like, shit is going to be crazy. I will help you make sure the Varden doesn't fall into craziness.
That's good. He's got the hot ass elf on his side.
Yeah. And he's like, thank you. And then a rescue party is sent out for the twins and Murtagh. And Arya goes because Aragon's like, hey, can you look for my like blade bro?
Yeah.
He's a little distraught.
Of course.
His second dad, he's already dead.
That's his third dad. Dane, I will not stand for this Garrow erasure.
Oh, yeah, Garrow. Sorry, it's official, guys. Aragon's a daddy killer.
Ooh,
yeah.
Please don't adopt Aragon.
Auric finally catches up. Or dwarves are sprinters. You know, they're not like great. Anyway.
Distance runners.
Yeah, they're distance runners. He's breathing hard, but he's in shape, you know. He's also like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Like he freaks out too when he sees Ajahad. And so the Varden succession battle has already started. And the chapter ends with Jormungandr, Ajahad's second in command, basically saying we have to get back and let the people know their leader is dead.
Oh.
That is one hell of an opening to a book.
Yeah, shit. So that does take us to chapter 2, wild opening. Chapter 2 is titled The Council of Elders. This chapter opens as Aragon wakes the next morning, and we get some flashbacks to start with. So Arya had returned late the night before with some scraps of like the twins and Murtagh's clothes she found on the edge of like a gaping chasm in one of the tunnels. And she tried from there to scry everybody, which I'm like, you not start with that? Whatever.
Yeah, why not start with the scry?
I don't know. So she scries, and her scrying only turns up darkness, which seems like a bad sign. Yeah. And before like memories and grief overtake him, Aragon's just staring at Saphira, thinking how cool it is that she can breathe fire now, and how annoying she is about like this new talent she has doing it. Like
for some reason, this like reminded me of learning how to gleek when I was younger, and like. It's so similar to how I imagine Saphira is with her new ability. When I learned how to gleek, I was just like gleeking all the time. Do you remember that?
Yes, it's disgusting.
We
it was
were teens.
Disgusting then. It's disgusting now. I hate the word gleek.
I know. But just imagine like an annoying teen. Saphira's just like.
Yeah, she is. She's breathing fire everywhere. It's like kind of cute, but
anyway,
Aragon's annoyed.
Back to the sadness, I guess.
Yes. Aragon does himself try to scry Murtagh in like this next morning. In a single tear, he cries into his palm, which is the most emo thing I think that's ever happened.
He picked up a few things from Murtagh. I think he's
that's true. He's carrying his friend's memory on. Yeah. I appreciate that. When he scries, it's described as, quote, darkness enveloped the liquid, turning it into a small dot of night on his silver palm. Movement flickered through it like the swish of a bird across a clouded moon, then nothing.
Ugh, that does not bode well.
No, for sure. The description's good though. I mean, emo.
Yeah, that is the beginning of like a hardcore like. And tonight I'm a, you know what I mean?
God, more singing just to kick off the season.
You can't every episode.
Great. So when Saphira wakes up, she already knows like the Varden's going to move quickly to choose a new leader, and she wants Aragon to like snap out of it basically and like go downstairs to the ground floor where all the peasants live,
right,
and get in the mix. They kind of need to be involved in the selection process.
Gotcha.
On the way out of their room, Aragon has a seizure, which is not great.
Oh, well, there we go. Already head trauma, right? Is that head trauma?
A seizure? I don't think he does pass out, actually.
Right.
So I think any lack of oxygen is going to count to the official head trauma tally. Oh,
it's lack of iron. Yes, it's lack of. Thank you, producer Kevin. It's lack of iron.
Yeah. So as he's waking from the seizure, Aragon thinks of two things. One is the duty they have to use their position to influence like the selection process of the Varden's new leader. And also he's thinking, just as importantly, how he's glad the twins are dead if a new leader is going to be chosen.
Hell yes.
Like that is brutal. So he and Saphira talk who would like be a good choice, but they're summoned to the Council of Elders before they can come to a conclusion.
Had we heard about them in the first book at all?
I'm not sure if there was like a passing reference to a Council of Elders, but not in any way that gave us any information. We get the big download here.
Yeah, like they're important or anything.
Yeah, exactly. There was just, Ajahad's influence was all encompassing, Dane. Who needs other leaders?
We were blind to everybody else. All we could see was Idris Elba. Yeah.
That's real. The Council of Elders consists of Jormungandr, two other dudes, and then two ladies.
Oh.
They're representatives. It says here they're chosen by the people of the Varden to advise the Varden's leader is like the structure of this. When Aragon arrives to talk to them, they also make a comment about how they hate the twins. Which, like, surprise, surprise. They call one of the ladies in the council, I think, calls him slime.
That's intense.
Yes. So I'm like, well, at least everybody really hated him.
Yeah,
like nobody is sad that they're dead. Brutal. They want to choose Ajahad's successor ASAP before Hrothgar, the Dwarven King, or Duvran Gargada, the Magicians organization, can have too much input, which I do find very interesting.
Yes.
And they want to make sure they get Aragon's support for their pick here. They say they've already decided unanimously, but they want Aragon's promise to keep his trap shut about everything that's happening in this meeting before they tell him who they picked, which... We're seeing
just of what he is starting to already affect that responsibility we were talking about at the end of season 1.
Yes.
It's already starting to affect. He's just being pulled into stuff, like into orbit, right?
Yes, exactly. So he does end up promising that he'll not tell anybody about anything that happens in this meeting, but only after he and Saphira have like a mind meld sidebar. and they decide that Saphira could tell anyone she wants to because she's not the one that promised. I'm like, damn, y'all, you guys are...
Workaround.
Yes.
Yeah.
Impressive. So the council says that they want to elect Niswada, Ajahad's daughter, as their new leader. And Aragon is really, really surprised at first because Niswada, remember, is really young.
Yeah.
But he and Saphira don't necessarily see a reason she wouldn't be a good leader. Everything they know about her to this point points to the idea that she's going to be very competent, very capable.
Yeah, they just don't have much information at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we also get a ton throughout this meeting about the political currents at work here, kind of like you're talking about. Yes, yes. So Jormungandr says it would cause problems for one of the council to take the position leadership over any of the others on the council, which I found interesting.
Yeah.
The council seems to want Niswada as the leader because they think she'll be a puppet because of her age. They want Aragon to swear fealty to the Varden as an organization, not Niswada, at Niswada's coronation ceremony, which I kind of think is interesting. And then finally, they need the elves' approval, and Arya's going to like act as the elves stand-in here before making any of this public.
That seems smart. Get your allies to participate in.
Yes, exactly. But it really seems like the way they're framing it, they cannot move forward without all of those things in place. So I'm wondering like if the council generally is on like kind of unsteady footing because they need to really have their ducks in a row.
Well, it seems like they're like living with the Dwarves, so the Dwarves have to be cool.
Yes.
And they're getting supplied a lot, or at least were until their connection was lost when Arya got captured.
Yes.
By the elves. So I think it's more of like, let's make sure that stable of food and soldiers is still coming our way.
Yes, that they're approving of our choices.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. That's a little, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it seems like they're very scared to make a move without a lot of contingencies in place, essentially. And Aragon... once he learns all of this, Aragon is pretty desperate to find any way to avoid swearing fealty. And I love his private dialogue with Saphira running like throughout this combo with the council to assess their options. Their problem solving is really good, actually. But I can't help thinking like the way he's just randomly making comments or just like being silent and looking kind of vacant behind the eyes as the council's talking to him. Like it must be very off-putting. He keeps popping up with the most hot button questions to buy time to think more and talk to Saphira more.
Yeah.
So he asks like, they're in the middle of talking and he asks like, well, why don't you just vote in Jormungandr? And everybody, the council like goes real quiet and they all look at each other like,
In the meantime, Aragon's just like,
Yeah, he's not even paying attention really to the reply. And
Yeah.
they're all very scared because they can't, like I said, they can't have one take precedence over the other. It would destabilize the entire council. He does the same thing, which is truly wild. He just pops up into their conversation and is like, well, what if I decide to lead?
I know.
Like, Aragon.
You know what this reminded me kind of? When Rand goes to that city and like decides he doesn't want in Wheel of Time and decides he doesn't want to participate in politics, so he's just doing nothing. So everyone's like, he's got to be doing something. I feel like they're like, what is this guy's deal?
Oh yeah,
you know,
I in Kyrian,
yes,
where
in
it's like
Kyrian.
famously like
Yes.
undercurrents and like
Yes.
political games, and he just like decides not to play, but then everybody thinks he's an expert.
Yeah, I feel like he puts the council on the back foot because he keeps asking these questions, but he's not paying attention at all. So it's
no,
like,
and they're just like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
he's got us on our ringer.
Yes, they're like, Aragon, we, you're too busy and too important to be our leader, because
Right.
they're terrified if he wants to be their leader. They can't have that.
It's
so
a Galbatorix-esque thing. I'm already liking like how much we're getting from Saphira. Aragon and her are sounding a lot more like a team in
Yeah.
these 2 chapters. And I like that.
I think so too. So the chapter ends as Naswada and Arya are summoned before the council. Saphira downloads Arya on everything that's happened so far, the
Yeah.
promises they've had to make. And Jormungandr gives Naswada his condolences first, which is nice. And then the appointment, and she accepts.
Yay!
Where to now?
And then that leads us to chapter 3, Truth Among Friends. We continue right where you finished last chapter. And as Naswada is taking on this leadership role, I don't know. She's also like playing in front of the council is very meek to me. Are you seeing this, Jax?
I mean, yeah, I could see she's just very like go with the flow. She's very stoic, I think, in a lot of
Yeah.
ways here. I don't know if that reads as meek or just like composed.
Yeah, just like very like non-controlling at this moment. Like very
Yes.
like, okay, I'll see what's happening. So they check in with Arya, trying to gauge what the Elven nation's opinion is going to be, and Arya seems, in a word, pissed. She holds it together, but it's clear she's mad. She thinks Aragon has like done and fucked up by agreeing to this swearing thing. So
Yes.
Naswada changes the demeanor almost immediately, and she is a straight baller and has the council leave. And at
Yes.
first they're cool with it and like don't see what she's doing, but then she holds Aragon and Saphira back.
Yes.
And you can see they're like, wait, what?
They're like, wait, she wants to sidebar without us? We'd love a sidebar.
Did we just get maneuvered?
Yes, in their own room too. It's like very specifically the council's chambers. It's like set up for their seats around
Yeah.
like a half oval kind of dais. And she's like, bye, y'all.
See you later. So Aragon is so smart here, Jax. I think the kid is learning. He uses his magic so they can't be overheard with people outside their room.
Okay.
And Aragon tells Naswada Ajahad's last words. Naswada tells Aragon that Ajahad and her had this all planned out.
Okay.
And it's going just like she expected.
I feel comforted knowing that the plan is Ajahad's.
Yes, right? So Naswada is a baller here. She also tells Aragon not to share Ajahad's last words, as it could like confuse who should take over. I don't really get that. What Ajahad said could also be framed to support her just as easily, but whatever.
I think
mean,
I'm with Naswada here. I think it definitely sounds like if Ajahad specifically was like, do not let the Varden descend into chaos, I think it definitely sounds a little bit like he's putting the responsibility of the Varden in Aragon's hands.
I guess. I don't know. But she gives her mission statement to Aragon.
Yeah.
Kill the Empire, keep Ajahad's dream alive, yada yada, Team Varden, fuck yeah.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And Naswada then tells Aragon that he can do whatever he wants, but if he does follow her, she will give him the same deal that Ajahad did. Basically, he has to help her win this war, but she will give him lots of freedom to choose how they do that.
Okay.
And
That's not a bad deal.
it's not a bad deal. And Aragon goes right back to bean farmer mode here without thinking really at all. Aragon just straight up kneels, sword out, and immediately pledges his fealty to Naswada.
I mean, like, just when I was like thinking maybe he's starting to be the tiniest bit more politically savvy, you're like, fuck.
Come on, man. I personally think this is both kind of dumb and also short-sighted because Naswada's cool here, but he has really only known the organization a week.
Yeah.
And Naswada for what, like 10 minutes collectively?
It's true. The time is crazy.
I know. So he has only met her for one other minute, like long conversation in the books. She obviously agrees, and Aragon proceeds to spill the beans about the council's wish for him to swear fealty to them. Mm-hmm. And she decides it'll be a sweet power move for him to swear publicly to her instead of the Varden in front of everyone at the coronation.
I mean, she's not wrong.
I know. She's like, just do it secret. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And she seems so nice. She apologizes for Aragon losing his friend Murtagh.
Yeah.
And I thought it spoke to her character here. She was thinking of him and what would be going on with him, even though she's, So this is the girl he should have a crush on. She is his age.
Okay.
She's fucking smart.
Yeah.
She's fucking powerful. She's super kind. And don't forget, most importantly, Jacqui, in this book, she hot.
Yes, Dane.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. She's Ajahad's progeny, R.I.P. Ajahad. It would be almost impossible for her to not just be a dime piece. Like, she's got to be hot.
It's true. Christopher Paolini don't miss with these characters. As they leave their new liege, Saphira almost kills Aragon with fire.
Of course she does.
It's so cute.
Is it?
Yeah, she also points out that she didn't swear to anyone, and she will kidnap him if his fealty to Nasawada runs against her interests.
Dude.
Yeah, she's like, nah, don't worry about it. I have to say, there's a few things here I was starting to be like, I don't know if I like this either. It just feels a pretty one-sided partnership if she could do that. Like, what if they disagree here? I don't think that's what she's talking about, but
yes, I guess like if they disagree, this kind of presents a problem. But
Yeah.
I think what she's trying to say to Aragon is like, okay, if you're uneasy about the fact that we're now bound to Nasawada in this way, like
I'm not bound by
I could
shit.
always get you out of it. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I do whatever I want.
I think it's supposed to be framed, like you said, as protective and like clever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm cool with it. Aragon goes and meets with Arya, and she instantly starts to berate him. She is super pissed off about Aragon vowing to follow Nasawada, and he tries to explain, but she cuts him off. And like he is called a fool.
I mean, don't forget, even you called it like an extra bean. We were exasperated by him choosing to do this. It's not smart.
But we were at least in the room and had context for that, like outrage. You know what I mean? She then goes on about how dumb Aragon is. And we learn that we get some things in her tirade about Arya has been helping the Varden for 70 years. Mm-hmm. She worked directly with Brom.
That's pretty cool.
Which is pretty dope. Aragon has ruined a lifetime of her work somehow. She's very upset. Aragon explains that he was kind of trapped and he was given no options.
He was not trapped. Okay, he was trapped by the council.
Like
yes.
he was sprung upon him.
That's totally true.
Yeah.
He went out of his way to swear to Nasawada.
Well, that was to counter his other trap. You know what I mean? He did what he thought would be best
I guess.
outside of the council. He's just a bean farmer who's trying to navigate court politics after 6 months of sword training on the road. And the thing is, like, Arya knows this and is seemingly for no reason still pissed off with that context.
It's no reason. So like, okay, she has been ferrying this egg around for 70 years. That's her life's work so far.
Yeah.
And like the writer it hatches for, I think, based on what Brom said, based on how mad she is here, like there's clearly a lot of expectation about the way that writer is going to be able to unify the rebel forces against Galbatorix. And that person has to be very careful to do it in the right way and not get bound too tightly to one of these factions or the other. Like
from a teaching strategy, an interpersonal relationship strategy, and just like a trust strategy, this isn't a great like strategy for Arya to employ. All of those things make sense. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just think the outrage directed at Aragon is not great for their relationship and does not like show that she's politically savvy or can think about how other people are feeling and then manipulating them through that, which has always been the like thing about Arya. She's like the elven person.
Yes.
She's been doing this for 70 years. It just doesn't come across that way.
But I feel like the stakes are so high. Like she's like, we don't have options for you to be a bean farmer right now. You have to get your shit together.
Yeah.
And like, she's not a famously good teacher. She's famously good at being a warrior and like ferrying the egg around and being a magician and bringing the elves' interests to bridging the gap essentially between the elves and the Varden. Those are her strengths.
Right.
And from that point of view, like, yeah, I could see why she'd be pissed.
I get why she's pissed. I don't get why she's taking it out on him. But Aragon doesn't really think about any of this important stuff. Not at all. Because he's completely caught up with how old she is and how like that surprises him and that she looks hot and 20 years old, though. Not 70.
Oh, Aragon.
Yeah. So despite Arya's, my personal opinion, is lame reaction here, or maybe because of it, the end of this chapter is Aragon trying to make small talk, I think, here.
Yes, Much like you, Dane, he loves a hot but mean woman.
Yes, and he's still a teen and wants to like learn about his crush. And he also insists that he isn't human anymore because, he has Saphira. He's a dragon boy now.
Yeah,
Yes.
Cool.
We're the same, you and me.
Oh
so
my God.
Arya seems so condescending a little bit here, but telling Aragon, the man with the dragon soul meld, that he won't understand his pact with Saphira until training is complete.
I feel like she's really elf-splaining to him here. She
that.
definitely takes okay, you're the one who's bonded to a dragon, but let me tell you that our race is going to educate you about that. And it's ugh, cool.
Amara, you don't understand.
Yes, exactly.
Aragon has a dragon in his head, and she has jack shit. I don't know. Anyway, so back up, Arya, for my boy Aragon. Back up for my bean farmer.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not a fan of hers here, but whatever.
No, but I do know what you are a fan of, and that takes us to chapter 4, Roran.
Yeah.
We get an absolutely iconic opening for Roran's first POV chapter here. The very first line truly is, quote, Roran trudged up the hill. I think it's everything you need to know about that character.
Sets it up perfectly.
I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me, but the word trudging, the act to trudge, tells me a lot about someone.
It's very evocative.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So this is Roran's first visit back to the ruins of the family farm since Horst. Do you remember Horst?
Yeah.
Turns out that guy is still around being solid as hell.
He's the best.
So this is Roran's first visit back since Horst helped him to salvage anything usable from the wreckage.
Oh, that's nice.
I know. So the farm is overgrown here. We've got some turnips and beets, it looks like. Where are the beans?
Where are the beans?
I don't know. And while he's here, Roran thinks about how the shock of Garrow's death and Aragon's disappearance has fundamentally changed him, which I think is really cool. It seems like now he basically just got real existential in his feelings. The quote here is, it also forced Roran to think more than ever before. It was as if bands had been cinched around his minds and those bands had snapped, allowing him to ponder ideas that were previously unimaginable. I think that's kind of cool. We get, a guy now who, from being just your regular run-of-the-mill farmer, maybe trying to be a miller and just marry a pretty girl.
Yeah.
Now he's very introspective. It feels like he has an open consciousness in a way.
Before in his head was just bean, 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 bean. Now he's got other stuff going on.
Yes, exactly. So based on the villagers' stories and the letter that Brom left Roran's decided that the strangers came to town for Aragon's stone, and basically everything that followed is Aragon's fault.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
That sounds right.
That sounds nice, yeah. So Roran's also living with Horst, hunting for sustenance, although not as well as Aragon.
Of course.
He's a good hunter, but not Aragon good. And he's also been working in the forge, which is just so nice of Horst, dude.
Yeah, and then Horst is the best.
Yes, and he's also thinking here he needs to get his shit together if he wants Sloane to let him marry Katrina. And I know we're going to do a little bit of a catch up on that plot line later. But if they don't get Daddy's green light, basically, they're going to start a blood feud, which it does not sound like anyone here wants.
No, blood feuds sound bad.
Blood feuds do sound bad. So I like all of this information we get is just Roran ruminating, thinking, being introspective, like I talked about.
Which is a stark contrast between our other POV.
Yeah.
Aragon does not spend a lot of time thinking. He's a man of action.
That is one way to put it. I've always said you're good with a euphemism, Dane. So Roran heads back into town for the night, planning how he's going to rebuild, essentially. So he goes to kind of survey the site, figure out how he's going to get his farm back in action. And after dinner at Horst's, Roran goes over to the tavern where trappers come to town with some hot gossip. And we love hot gossip.
Love hot gossip.
Yes. So Urgles apparently have disappeared from the countryside where previously, remember, it had been engulfed in chaos, essentially. Yeah. Trade has been bad, but it's something more sinister than raiders because the goods that the trade has been bad because of, these goods aren't being stolen. They've been burned, on the roads. The trapper also says allegedly a shade with red eyes, red hair, pointed teeth. Sound familiar? Yes, a shade has been seen on the edge of Du Weldenvarden near Gilead. And the Empire's troops are on the move around the country. So the soldiers of the Empire are just busy, like a hive of bees.
I just got an idea. I just hit me right now. Is that scene on the edge of Du Weldenvarden near Gilead the very prologue of the last book?
I kind of think so. I think it's got to be.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Paolini, that's cool. Okay.
Hints.
Yeah.
Drops. I love it.
Yeah.
So yes, they more of the gossip is that the Empire's like soldiers are running around the country, and there have been reports of a new rider.
No way.
I know. So Roran listens to all of this, and he's just like, "Oh, the stuff about the Shade and the Rider is fucking crazy. I don't believe any of that. Couldn't
like,
possibly be
not real.
true."
Yeah.
Yes, fake news. But he decides he is concerned about the rest, which would mean, if that's true, the stuff about trade and the stuff about the army, if that's true, that would mean war might break out at any minute, which would mean higher taxes, a possible draft. Like, he's really thinking down the line, like some downriver effects, essentially, of this gossip. It is funny, too, just one quick side note. When he's thinking about the rider, I think he's like... Oh, rumors of new riders just crop up like every 5 years or so, and it's always fake. So that's why he doesn't believe that. I'm like, ooh, Roran. If only you knew, my guy.
Yeah, dude, seriously. And also, again, another contrast with, he's thinking of not only is he taking this information in, he's thinking about what it means for him.
Yes. What it means for him, the people he knows, like how he's going to accomplish his goals in the face of this new information.
Yeah. That's very different than Aragon.
Yes. Very strategic and very like smart and well thought out. Roran sees Katrina in the tavern and heads out with her for like some stargazing on the edge of town. He's got a romantic date night planned. Yeah. And he's like so intoxicated by her beauty and her scent. He's got this in common with his cousin. They are the same man in this respect. And she's clearly just as into him, which I love. Like, she's swooning a little bit. But unfortunately, the tone of the date gets set on a little bit of an awkward track because Katrina here is feeling the old-timey pressure to not end up an old maid.
Classic.
Yes, correct. So Roran tries to talk her into waiting until the farm is rebuilt to ask for her hand, but she's insistent that he needs to ask Sloane like yesterday before Sloane marries her off to somebody else. She's like, do you see what I'm working with? Like I look great. I'm going to be married off any minute now so my dad can get his like 12 goats and chest full of lace or however that
doily
works.
Or something.
Yes. So the chapter ends, unfortunately, with her storming off, and Roran spends hours stargazing and contemplating before returning to Horst's house.
Another thing that's different than Aragon. I can't see him being like, let's just contemplate things. That takes us to chapter 5, The Hunted Hunters. I remember loving Rowan's chapters and already know why. They are juicy.
Yes.
Full of hot goss.
We love hot goss.
Yeah, it's great. It's all over the place, Jax. The chapter starts. I didn't mean it like that. Anyway, the chapter starts with Baldor and Roran hunting a deer. We get some wisdom from Horst's son Baldor that is truly good. And Baldor sounds like a dope friend.
Yes.
Be a better friend. Be like Baldor.
Me?
Yeah,
personally?
Well, just everyone. If you're listening to this and you're like, am I a good friend? Just be like Baldor. I think he's the first young man who's just like crushing life with no marks against him in this series. Yeah. And I will say that the dudes talk about Katrina like an object.
Interesting.
But it seems like that's normal here is all I can say. I'm going to give them the cultural and time period-esque attempt, but still, it's just weird. It's still a little weird.
I mean, I don't know if there's something that's like the opposite of the Bechdel test, but if there is, this is it. Two guys talking about a woman, but only in terms of her relationships to men.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 ticks you need for like anti-Bechdel test. I actually do want to touch on this a little more like later in the analysis. So,
really?
Yes, we can leave it alone for the time being. Okay. I will make you answer for your hot take on this soon.
No. Baldor explains that Roran should try to make nice with Sloane first and make it clear no one is going to want Katrina with Roran like publicly into her. And on top of that, if some other dude is into her, they're going to be cucked.
Ugh.
He says the word cuckolding.
Yes.
Which is wild in this teen book. Did you know what that was even before Trump 2016?
I think like in a passing way, actually. Yeah, I kind of did. I certainly didn't imagine it would become a feature of the modern lexicon again, I think. I just thought it was like a goofy old timey word like blunderbuss.
Well, unfortunately not. And I just never remembered that. Anyway, I think Baldor might be right here though. He also says if Sloane still isn't cool, you try to marry her after that. then the town won't care. But if you go for it and try to marry Katrina behind Sloane's back, not only will there be a blood feud with Sloane, but the town won't back Roran in that, and he will be like seen as like a troublemaker around town, which is like good old fashioned town gossip. I love it.
That's true. I like this. This kind of reinforces the idea that these people in this village really depend on each other, and like it's going to be a big problem if you're a pariah in this town.
And such a contrast from what we've seen to Aragon. We just got him basically talking to kings and council members
right
and
now.
war and dragons. Yeah, it's crazy. So I have to say right now that Baldor is who Saphira should have chosen. He is big and he is buff and he has a brain. I want that book.
Hot take, Dane.
The first book of the inheritance cycle, Baldor.
Oh my God.
Baldor's a tough love guy. He's really straight with Roran. He doesn't pull punches. Oh, do I have a crush on Baldor?
I think so. Yeah. I think maybe Baldor is filling the Murtagh-sized hole in your heart.
That's what it is. I just needed someone to fall back on. And Baldor was there to catch me. And his big arms.
Okay.
All right. The boys are chatting and walking through the forest when they find a group of Galbatorix soldiers stopping for lunch on the road, which is weird. More importantly, the Razak are there. And Roran almost attacks. It is wild how much rage he has.
I was shocked again, like to see the Razak back so quickly.
I know. It's like this book is blowing me away.
Yeah.
Baldor stops him from breaking down all the reasons that he can't attack the Razak. He's so smart.
Yes.
I'm just saying, I want maybe a Baldor POV. That's all I'm saying. Roran and Baldor rush as fast as they can back to Carvajal, and Roran is fine with this because it's probably way less than the 10 miles.
Oh my God.
He is used to trekking.
Right.
Yeah.
He's in like perfect trekking condition.
Yeah, he's like, this is no problem at all. They rush to alert the village, and Roran tells Horst, who sends him to pack up some food and take his horse into the forest. Horst decides the cover story will be that, and what he's going to tell the soldiers is that Roran is out hunting.
Yes, Horst is the best.
He's just, and it was
no wonder Baldor's the best.
Yeah, it's like, and it's instant. Horst doesn't think at all. He's like, oh yeah, grab my stuff.
Here's the plan. Let's make sure you get out and away, and we will lie to Imperial troops to protect you.
With boogeymen.
Crazy.
Yeah. From up in the forest, Roran watches Carvajal and sees the soldiers and the Razak walk into the standoff at the edge of town. The men of Carvajal stand with pitchforks in front of soldiers with swords.
Yes, classic pitchfork mob.
Yeah, but
always a good time.
It's so good. But they ultimately let the soldiers in the village in, where they make camp in a field right beside Carvajal.
Okay.
And the chapter ends with Albrecht coming to bring food, blankets, and medicine at night. That's
nice.
Yeah, it's so nice. His whole family's great.
Yes.
And he tells Roran he has to go back, but before he leaves, he informs Roran that the Razak are after him and are asking after him directly.
Oh, shit.
And his brother cousin, Aragon.
Oh.
The family is fucking clutch. This Horst family,
yes,
they are just great.
Do they have last names?
I don't think so. I think it would be like Albrecht Horst son.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, dude, so scary. What do they do? What do they want with Roran?
Oh my God.
What's going on? I don't know.
I have no idea. We leave on a cliffhanger for this first episode of season 2. We're going to have to find out later.
But I am actually interested. You know, I sometimes wish that I contemplated more things, but you do, and you do analysis.
That's me.
So let's go to that.
It's time for analysis.
Yes, I have been trying at least. So this week for my analysis section, I love the beginning of this book. I love that we have new POV characters.
Yeah.
It's such a good time. But I think it's fun now to have the themes really hit home for like several main characters at the same time. And to me, a lot of the plotting that happens in this section really ties back to the idea of decisions, and especially decisions you're making under pressure. I think the opening in the very first chapter to be rocked by Ajahad's death is forcing decisions under pressure onto the entire like Aragon's POV narrative at this point. I mean, we have the council, Naswada, Arya, Auric, Hrothgar. Everyone has choices to make very quickly because of the position Ajahad's death has put them all in. And all these choices as well, I think important to say, they're going to be very consequential to not only the Varden, but also how, you know, this war, this conflict is going to progress. I mean, at least in this book, maybe in the other 2 in this series as well, you know?
No, the other 2 are about retirement.
I mean, you never know. So I really like that. I like that we're kind of getting a lot of lenses on this. I do want to go to Aragon for a while.
Okay.
I think he's obviously facing a lot of huge and consequential decisions, and he's under the most pressure maybe he's been in his young life so far.
Yeah.
And for him, I think the big decision to make is how much to participate in the Vard and how fully to embroil himself in this organization. And he's thinking a lot about how his power is really forcing a lot of responsibility onto him. Like, how much should he exercise his power? What does he owe people because of how powerful he is? I mean, these are questions he's really trying to work through in the beginning chapters of this book. It's interesting when he meets with Niswada, when he meets with the council, like, he's feeling like a player here. And I think what I love is our cutaways too to his and Saphira's sidebar, because while maybe he's presenting himself like he's got it and he's powerful and he has the decision made, we see in his internal monologue, or his internal dialogue rather, that he's really worried about what they're going to do and really feels the weight of that expectation on him.
Yeah, it's definitely a new skill he's going to have to hone here, this idea of like political maneuverings and knowing what's going on, that type of stuff.
Absolutely. And I know you're liking getting more Saphira, more of her personality. She definitely seems more like a 3D fleshed out character versus like, I don't know, just like a sidekick to a whiny teen that doesn't know what emotions are.
I didn't go into it last season, but like a lot of people complain that she's a plot mover. You know what I mean? And I can get that. She was always fun.
Yes.
And she's a dragon, so it's cool.
Yes.
I always thought she would be fleshed out later when I was reading these books, so it never bothered me. But you're right. She's feeling more 3D.
Yes. I mean, she's the sneaky one. She's the one who's like, oh, I'll get you out of that bind. Don't worry.
She's messing with her talents. We're getting a little bit of her learning stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, Aragon really being in the mix now, he's really having to think on his feet, and it feels like some genuine growth for him. So I like the idea that his actual character development is happening through the lens of all these decisions he's having to make. Like,
I like that.
It's putting him in a place where he has to like grow or die, dude.
It's not just training montages.
Yes, exactly. It's real life experience. And as the section ends for his POV, he still hasn't necessarily decided on the right choice in the fealty debacle. I know, obviously, Arya makes a big deal about it. He's kind of told the council one thing at this point. He's sworn privately to Niswada, but he's still actually, where we are right now, has not decided how he's going to move forward, which I kind of like. It's like there are big decisions to make, and they don't all get made right away. Like, maybe sleep on it for a night. So maybe he's trying to embody Roran a little bit here. But I do like that Christopher Paolini is facing him with things that just don't have an easy answer. I think, at least for me, having something like this at the very beginning of the book is a really good writing device to set the tone for the rest of the book, and maybe the rest of the series too, where we're going to be confronted with a lot of things that don't have clear-cut answers and a lot of decisions and choices to make that, I mean, I kind of make the joke sometimes, like two roads diverge in a wood, but like...
No, I get it. I think, like with the Arya conversation we had earlier, I think that's only possible. I don't think either one of us is very wrong. I think we both make points, and I think that's hard to do, to make people feel fleshed out in small amounts, especially in like a young adult novel. And
I mean, Arya wasn't even really awake in the last book, and we already have such like strong thoughts about her characterization. I think like having all these decisions being made is really working to do that for these characters.
Non-black and white decisions.
Exactly.
Too.
Yes. I do want to touch on Roran as well. Obviously, he's our other main character in this book so far,
cool.
and his plot ties really well into this idea as well. He's trying to decide how he's going to, get his life right to be able to marry Katrina. He's also confronted very suddenly with how he might avenge his family and also protect the family he might want to have. And he's having to make decisions around all of those things. His opening scene being at his old farm, I think kind of represents a decision he's already made to rebuild his old life. He thinks on this internally, but he kind of says, like, I thought for the first time in my life, I could go many ways. I could like be many different people, essentially.
Yes.
I mean, it's not really a multiverse book, but he kind of envisions himself like that. Like, I don't have to be a farmer. I always thought I only had one option.
Yeah.
And now he's deciding that that might not be the case. And it is a little brief, but I like that the description of Roran is as something more than a simple country guy after the trauma he suffered in the last book. He's very introspective. So
Yes.
it's a really good trait in a POV character, obviously, whose reasoning we need to be able to see to make the narrative interesting. Like, as a writing choice, I love that he's like, okay, I'm just an introspective dude. So now my internal monologue is like pushing this plot along. And we both talk about how much we love Roran and his character. And I think this goes a long way towards making that the case.
And also, this is another good use of loss. You're seeing how loss can change. And I really like that in this section.
Yeah, I think so too. And I like, as far as decisions go, he has to think fast and decide on his feet. When he's with Katrina and she confronts him about the timeline for their engagement, she's like, my guy, what the fuck?
Yeah.
When are we going to do stuff? And we see this introspective guy suddenly think quickly, be decisive, tell her, you know, he's working on it. He has all of his reasons why they can't get engaged quite yet.
Most of us married guys have, at one point or less, was probably in this situation. It's gonna be soon, okay? It'll be fine.
Working on it.
I'm saving up for the ring, all right?
I think it makes him feel really realistic because like he's introspective. He's working on deliberating under pressure. And this is like where the rubber hits the road, basically, for him and his plot line. And then as his story is closing out, I love that he also like really is having to fight his instincts to decide not to attack the Razak right when he sees them. I mean, Baldor goes a long way towards like presenting him with options, but ultimately we do get internal monologue again from Roran to show how he takes in Baldor's information, decides that his friend is right, and keep a cool head and decide to warn the town and go into hiding. That's his choice. And he sticks to his guns there. And I really like too, I think it shows us so much about his character that the reason he makes that choice is because of Katrina. He thinks about her as he's making the decision not to attack the Razak right away. And I think that hopefully in a spoiler-free way tells us pretty much everything we need to know about Roran. Yeah. He's in love with that lady and he will do anything to protect her and be with her. And overall, I think the pacing and the action and the opening of this book are keeping our characters all on their toes and forcing them to make big choices that are going to continue, like I said, to have consequences, I think, for the rest of the series.
Yes, for sure.
I do, again, just want to touch really quickly on what a good writing choice I think it is to have a new POV character here. Like Christopher Paolini, I think, had options essentially to like catch up with the Carvajal plot line without necessarily making Roran a point of view character. He could have done, you know, somebody comes into Aragon's life and tells him a story, or like
rumors from
shows up and
Empire.
has a flashback about what happened. Somebody carrying news, like you said, rumors. We know Aragon knows how to scry. So I think there were definitely a lot of options here. And I think of all of those, to me, having Roran be this fleshed out point of view character is the most interesting, the most successful. I think it really makes this series something special because, I mean, to my knowledge, there hadn't been a ton of fantasy books written with like multiple point of views around the time this came out. I mean, like Game of Thrones was coming out, and I know for a young author, at least, that maybe wasn't something Christopher Paolini had read by 14. was like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I can think of a few, but it wasn't as popular as it is now.
I guess maybe not many that had come out. Maybe what I'm getting at is not many that a kid would have read. Yeah, by that point of view,
the kids wouldn't probably have read Michael Moorcock or
exactly.
The Black Company. Yeah.
So I think, I mean, I could be wrong, totally wrong, but at least from what Christopher Paolini has said in interviews, like some of the books he loves or some of his inspirations when he wrote Aragon, I think this was kind of a bold and novel choice for him, and I'm kind of impressed here.
Yeah, it's cool. I think it also makes Aragon more interesting because they're so different.
Yes, he seems to have a foil. And again, in the same way, like Murtagh provided a glimpse of somebody who might be similar in a lot of like surface level ways to Aragon. Like Roran was raised with Aragon, is his cousin, is similar in surface level ways, but internally we're seeing a lot of daylight between
Yes.
these two guys. So I do love that. And then last, before we hop out of analysis, I do want to touch back on, I think, kind of the historical connections I see in this section of the book. I
Okay.
mean, we have this vaguely medieval, like, sell your daughter for a goat dowry concept that's pretty central to one of the plot lines here.
Yeah.
And I guess, Mr. Social Studies teacher, like, how historically accurate does this feel to you? I mean, I know obviously that was the thing that people did.
Yeah.
And I guess, is there a way you think that having this be something that's tied to a historical reality keeps it from maybe aging poorly?
Well, I'm pausing because I'm like, how do I, I think, first off, yes, up until very, 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 very recently, like 1950s, 1920s, marriage for love, not a thing.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively a transactional thing. I think most people know that.
Yes.
I think the dowry thing, very, very important around the world for most of, like, that's how, it's very similar to how most of that happened.
Yes.
For large swaths of human history. So that's pretty accurate. As far as keeping it in a book, it's a lot like the slavery thing we talked about earlier. I think as long as it is pointed out as directly maybe the worst, like, part of human beings in some ways, like,
to, like, commodify women in that way.
yeah, I think as long as that is touched on and clearly represented in the narrative at some point, I think it's fine.
Okay.
I think it's when you ignore that and go, well, I'm just trying to ground it in reality. It's like, well, it's not grounded in reality. There's elves and there's dragons and there's magic. So, like, you
This
have
was
this
a choice.
Yeah, you have the space to
Yes.
say, like, definitively, just so we're clear, not great.
Yeah.
Even if it is a plot point of your story. So I would say right now, don't see a problem with it. I'd be interested to see
guess-
how this goes, though.
Okay. So I guess in this section, I haven't seen, any agency necessarily on Katrina's behalf.
Yes.
I think right now for me, it reads a little like, okay, tell us at some point that, like, people don't love this or, like, think it's a bad tradition. And that definitely is not the tone of the conversation that Roran and Baldor have. And then the
No.
only inkling I think we get to the contrary is, the scene with Katrina in which she genuinely loves Roran. She does want to be married to him.
Right.
But for her characterization, she's just operating under kind of the yoke of this system. And she's only worried because she knows she's going to get married off one way or another to avoid becoming an old maid. And it's like,
Yeah.
nobody ever says, like, this is some bullshit.
Well, I do think it's maybe too early. You got to set the stakes, right?
Yeah.
I also think, and this isn't like as much of a, like, trying to reach for a defense. We also, though, in this world do have characters like Nasawada that was just in this section crushing it.
Yeah.
We have people like Arya talking down to a dragon rider.
For sure.
I do think, like, at this point, I'm like, okay, I agree with everything you said. Are we going to get there?
Yes,
Like,
that's
that
what I'm
would be
saying.
my
In
thing.
this
Yeah.
very specific section where we are right this minute.
Yeah, it doesn't
time
feel
and
great
place.
right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm like. Maybe we're going to get a little evolution on this because
Yeah.
what we have here for the people of Carvajal, and like I kind of mentioned in the chapter summary when we talked a little bit about this part, it does serve the function of telling us, I understand, like, it serves a purpose of telling us what kind of society Carvajal is, and for setting, like you said, the stakes for Roran in terms of not just his love interest and his, like, romantic plot line, but sets the stakes in terms of what the people of Carvajal mean to each other, like the ways that they're bound to each other and why, what it would mean to be an outcast, what it would mean to have a blood feud, like all of that.
It seems more real because of this.
Yes, it does. Like,
Yes.
I would agree with that. Where we are right now, I wish somebody had been like, I don't like that we have to think about this, but we do. But
Yeah. We'll just have to keep reading and find out. I don't know.
exactly.
Well, that was a really deep conversation, and I think that is the perfect segue to a deep dive. For this week's deep dive, we're doing Carvajal.
Yes.
Yeah. So the beautiful place and its pastoral landscapes. I would love to do a deep dive on Carvajal this week as
Yes.
Roran is back in the picture.
Yes.
And it seems like the villagers of Carvajal are all a part of this story.
And we left a long ass time ago, so
know, it's been
catch
a
us
while.
up a little bit.
Let's jump in. First off, I just want to start where the heck this place is. We've been all over the empires. I read an interview with Paolini that said the distance between, quote, Gilead and Furthendor, as the crow flies, is 390 miles.
Okay.
So just eyeballing the map, Carvajal is many hundreds of miles from the capital of the empire and tucked into a valley against the mysterious and dangerous Spine Mountains. And for context, the empire's capital is Urobane, and it looks to me, added with the information that we have from Paolini himself, that it is as far away as the far side of the country of Serda.
Okay.
Outside of the empire's borders from Urobane.
Okay.
So it is very far removed.
So our farmers are from the boondocks.
Yeah, they're really out there. They don't get news very much. They don't get a lot of troops. So now that we know where we are in the world, let's talk about the people.
Okay.
We know about Roran. Roran is older than 16-year-old brother cousin Aragon by a few years.
Yes.
So obviously he's considered a man in Carvajal.
Right?
He was raised as a farmer by his father Guerra, who died at the hands of the Razak, and his mother Marian, who died of sickness a few years before that.
Yes.
It was implied that it happened much. I'm just gonna say a few years because it was implied that it was before Aragon found the egg.
Yes,
by quite
he
a bit.
ruminates on Marian when she died. And
Yeah, but there's no there is
We don't
no
have a
date.
date for
I
that.
couldn't even find it online or
Yeah.
in an interview. It's not there. So at the beginning of the last book, Roran was setting off to work a season on the mill so he could raise enough money for Katrina, as you had mentioned, to be his
Yes.
wife. And he didn't have doing that because Garrow died, so he came back.
Right.
So the goal
Tough
was
look for a guy trying to buy a wife.
Yeah. So he wanted to so he went to the mill and then he was gonna build his own farm.
Yes.
It sounds like close to his dad's.
Or just have a cash injection to
Right.
Garrow's farm, which
Start his
seemed
podcast.
humble. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So the Spine Mountains, let's talk about this place for a second. The people of the Empire fear the Spine Mountains because when Galbatorix was having his war with the Dragon Riders, half of his troops that he sent into the Spine mysteriously died.
That's crazy. That is a detail I fully missed.
Yeah, and since then, most people in the Empire are deathly afraid of the mountain range and will not go deep inside it for fear that will happen to them.
Yes, and the people of Carvajal specifically are scared as shit of the Spine. They live right at the base of it, and
Even good old Horst has some comments about it.
Yes.
I get the impression that this is just a superstitious thing. It appears as Aragon often went very deeply in the Spine for days on end for years with no risk. So it seems very superstitious.
Yes, I mean
don't
half
know.
the troops thing seems more than superstitious.
Well,
that's some hard statistics.
Yeah, but I don't know what.
We don't know why.
We just don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Sloan. Let's talk about the
Maybe
Sloan.
they had a Donner Party situation up there. We don't know.
Yeah, they just ate everybody. So that leads me to the Sloan Triangle.
Yes.
That's what I'm calling it. Let's continue with this. So Sloan and Katrina and their connection with Aragon, Roran, and Garrow.
Okay.
Sloan is the asshole butcher who we learned
guy.
about in the first book.
Uh-huh.
We know he's afraid of the Spine more than normal because his wife, named Ismira, accidentally fell on the top of the Igualada. How do you say this?
Igualda.
Igualda. There we go.
I think so.
Igualda Falls while out there. I say she was probably trying to get away from Sloan.
Yes, you do. That is canon on this podcast. I agree for the record.
yeah.
It's not just you.
I
That
mean,
guy sucks.
He sucks.
I jump off a waterfall too.
Sloan hates Aragon because I guess Aragon goes out there and he has the taint of the Spine on him. I don't know. This has led to an outright hate for the rest of Aragon's family, it seems.
Yes.
And Garrow didn't seem to like Sloan back much in the first book.
Uh-huh.
So let's talk about Katrina and Roran. They've been to each other for a while.
Yes.
In the first book, in the first few chapters, Aragon is to give Katrina a message for Roran.
That's right.
It's very lovey-dovey. Horst and Garrow seem to be aware of this love. It seems to be common town knowledge. Even in the conversation with Baldor, it seems like this is...
Yeah, it seems like they're maybe keeping it light enough that the town's not mad about it, but everybody kind of knows what the deal is.
Exactly. We have to go over two more pieces very quickly. Some of the other important peeps and some customs of the local people. Important people, Horst and his family, obviously, we've been talking about how great they are. The rich and important blacksmith and the all-around good guy. We have his wife, Elaine. She's a nice blonde hottie.
Great.
Who let Aragon stay when Garrow was sick.
Yes.
We have two sons, Albric, the buff blonde brother, and Baldor, the less buff dark-haired brother.
Yes.
That's how you tell them apart.
Oh, right.
Yes. There's Morn and Tara, who run the Seven Sheaves Tavern. Remember the one in the first book where the two Empire guys were there, and Aragon goes in there, and there's the Urgelhorns, and they were like, the government doesn't protect the tavern.
Yes, yeah. They have a big politics argument, debate in the tavern.
Yeah, that's their place. Okay. And then we have the town brewer that brewed most of the drink is for Morn. His name is Quimby. He's also mentioned in the first book.
Great name.
Yeah.
Quimby.
Quimby's a good name. Quimby's married to Bridget, and they have a young son.
Great.
There's also Fisk, the carpenter, and Gertrude, who I guess is a town healer in Carvajal, and we've talked a lot about her because she was the only woman described, not in a hot way.
Not in a sexual way.
But
Thank
as
you so much.
rotund. And she cared for Garrow and Aragon in the first book.
Yes.
That is the important people in the city, and the only thing left is basically what we've learned about Carvajal through Aragon in the first book. Carvajal is left alone by the Empire, as I had mentioned, because of its location. Most people here have forgotten and kind of feel soured on King Gabaldorix in a way we didn't see in most of the Empire. People were bummed out because their villages got murdered, but when we went to the bigger cities, there was this everything's fine. We have Murtag's version. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
So they get information slowly up here. Their only source is really from trappers coming up before the season and stopping at the inn, and then trappers coming down in the season to work as farmhands.
Yes. And then the trading caravan that comes through once a year.
Yeah. We know the boys become men at 16, and we learned from Aragon in Book 1 that when people die in Carvajal, they place either a hemlock on their chest of the person who died and a silver amulet around their neck before they're buried. Just some cultural background we have. It's the only thing I could add in here. So there it is.
Yes.
And in the book, we get the insight that Roran has to ask Katrina's family, which is Sloane, if he can marry Katrina, and he can't just ask her. So classic old school dowry stuff like we talked about. And that's Carvajal in a nutshell. The only thing that I would say here is that... there's only a few hundred people in this village.
Yeah, we have a good idea about its size.
It's very small.
Yeah.
It's not a big place.
Yes.
So it's not like a city or anything. There's not thousands of people here.
Yes, yeah. It's a good condensation because I think when I was a kid, for sure, I did not think we'd ever be coming back to Carvajal. I thought that place was dead to us.
You kind of forget it. You just
forget
dump it all.
almost everything that happens.
Yeah.
So thank you for a little refresh. Love to see it.
And that, we talked about people getting married. We talked about people who have died. And that's a great transition. Instead of the haters this week, I say we go into some fuck, marry, kill.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm down. I think this season, because so much of the hate, right, in the whole inheritance cycle is really consistent with some of the stuff we talked about in Aragon. We'll revisit it, right?
It'll be a segment every now and then.
Yeah, we're definitely going to keep what are the haters saying because we do want to make sure we touch on it. But more often now when it's either something new that we haven't gone over in the past or when there's a lot of new information to add to things we've touched on before, right?
Yeah. I'll come back to stuff probably in more condensed stuff when we have information.
Okay.
But I also am not going to tread over Star Wars and Lord of the Rings too much this season.
We could just do a podcast about those things instead if we wanted to talk about it that much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff is just a little, to be honest, nitpicky, and we're not going to focus as much on that stuff.
Gotcha.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are you ready?
I was born ready.
Here's our first one. Fuck, marry, kill.
Okay.
The twins.
Oh.
The Rozak.
Oh.
Sloane.
Oh, fuck.
And the twins is a package deal. You get two. It's 2 for 1.
Ugh. Ick. Okay, I think quickly because it's the only way to do it.
Rip the Band-Aid off?
Yes, kill the Rozak. They're not human, and that's gross all around.
I think so.
And there's 2 of them,
yes.
so negatives abound there. I think we're fucking Sloane. And marrying the twins because at the very least, they. Oh God, is there anything good to say? At the very least, they can do magic. That would be helpful around the house, ?
Could be.
And I don't want to fuck 2 guys, so.
Well, presumably you're married.
Oh, sorry. Well, yes, that's why I would not fuck the twins and marry Sloane.
Oh, okay.
That's a no for me.
So the twins will be a purely one at a time boys situation.
Yes.
Okay.
Boo. Now you.
Now me?
Yeah.
Okay, I would.
Same question.
Yes, I would marry. First, I'm starting with marriage.
Great.
I would marry Sloane.
Ick.
Because he's a family man. I bet he knows good horse flesh being a butcher.
His wife maybe committed suicide, Dane.
I'm just saying, I think I could handle him. You know what I mean? So I'm marrying Sloane. I've thought a lot about this.
Great.
Yeah, I've really dwelt on this. You definitely kill the Razak. I'm with you.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm going to be adventurous and, have a menage a trois with my twins.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to do it, I'm going big. Go big or go home.
Gross.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to move on from that. For kind of the opposite vibe.
Okay. I'm ready.
I think I have one.
Yeah.
Garrow, Horst, Brom.
Oh, so good. Okay, first, killing Garrow.
Oh.
Yes, he was written very scary, and I don't think there's anything attractive or safe about sticks and scarecrows, or like slow staring while he chews over the dinner table.
That's true. That's true.
It doesn't bode well for the bedroom either. So I'm gonna
deliberate slowness.
Yes, I'm gonna fuck Horst.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the correct choice.
He's the hottie with a body here.
Yes. I think there's only one way to answer this one, to be honest.
And I'm going to marry Brom.
Gotta marry Brom.
He's so good.
I mean, he's good at everything.
Yeah.
Teach you all of the things.
I would learn so much.
I love that.
What about you?
I mean, same answer. I think there's only one answer for that one.
I thought you were going to come in with like a surprise Garrow. Like,
no,
one
Dane.
of the two.
No, you kill Garrow, unfortunately.
So quick. All right, let's do like, we have like all these other protagonists. So we got to do like a Murtagh, Aragon,
yes,
Roran. I'm noticing that none of these are women here.
No.
So it's making it really difficult for me. But okay, Murtagh, Aragon, Roran.
Okay, I think. Ugh.
Ooh.
I think I'm fucking Murtagh.
Okay.
I'm a marry.
Oh no.
Roran.
Oh no.
Kill our main character.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Well, write in to tell Jacqui how you feel about that.
Listen, Murtagh's a bad boy.
Yeah.
No other.
Oh, of course.
No other justification needed. Roran is thoughtful and considerate. He was described initially as very hot before Aragon was ever described as hot.
Right.
And like he clearly seems like if he's about you as his like partner in life, he's about nothing else. I'm into that.
He also seems competent, and you like a competent man.
That's true. Yeah. That's definitely true. How about you?
I think I'm going to surprise everybody here.
Uh-oh.
I think fuck Murtagh. I mean, I'm also fucking Murtagh.
I can't believe you're not marrying Murtagh.
No. He'd be a hard man to be married to because we're both so similar. Just two warriors on the road. two sad boys.
That's the man who wants to marry Sloane. Murtagh would be a hard man to be married to. Go on.
I think we'd get in each other's way. Too much emo music in the house. So I think he'd be a fun one night stand.
Yes.
You know, because he wouldn't
agree.
No, he would have no hangups.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of baggage there. Okay. And then this is where I think I'm switching. I think I'm marrying Aragon for several reasons. He's prophesized to marry a very beautiful and lovely person. And I like to think of myself in positive ways. And also that love is supposed to be great and wonderful. So if I end up marrying him, we are prophesized to have a very lovely life.
That means you're a beautiful woman of noble birth.
I know. And look at that. And also just think of the like practicality here. Always have a car ready. Zafira drive me anywhere.
Yes, that's correct.
Like on-demand flights. That's a private jet in this world. He can do magic, a lot of it. Not very good at it, but he can do it. And then also he'll live forever. So when I'm old and feeble, he can push me around on like a little wheelchair. I'll be like, that's where we carved our names in the tree, Aragon. Shade Slayer, my man.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I feel weird about that. Kevin looks very uncomfortable. And then I'm going to, unfortunately, murder Roran.
Yeah.
But it's because I have no attachments. I just met him.
I am definitely going to be bringing that up later, just so you know.
It'll be something I
when you tried to murder Roran, I'm going to make you regret that for sure. I have to be done with Fuck, Marry, Kill.
Yeah, that's...
before it gets any weirder.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. You're still with us. Thank you.
Shocking information. Okay, so if we're not going to do haters this week, if we have a little time, I wanted to say we've actually had some listener questions come in. Yes.
Okay.
And I was hoping maybe we'd find some time to answer them on the air. Does that sound fun?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
At least one or two.
Okay. So we had Alyssa in Washington, D.C. Shout out, Alyssa.
Hey, Alyssa.
Yes, if we roll through for the meetup, you're our first call because you asked our first questions. She asked us a few good ones. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, she asked first, what made you decide to start a podcast and how did you decide what book to start with?
Oh, wow.
Yes.
You want to start first or me?
Well, you go because
Okay.
the podcast was your idea.
Okay, well, that's fine. I decided I had been wanting to do a podcast for a long time.
Yes.
There's several reasons for that, but one of the bigger ones is I did have a radio show in college.
Yeah.
And I just like love talking to people about
Yes.
stuff. It's kind of what I do
That's
as my hobby.
correct.
But so that I wanted to do a podcast, and me and you always talk about fantasy books and
Yes.
fantasy stuff and D&D. We also talk about politics.
Yes, we were in a real life book club too.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Who would be really great to ask? Jacqui. And then I asked you. And then the reason I like picked Aragon was because it meant so much to both of us. You had mentioned we had talked about this as kids.
Well, I was going to say, so you asked me, I'll pick up the thread, I guess, pick
yeah.
up the baton a little bit. So you asked me to do the podcast. It's definitely public facing things are not necessarily my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I thought, I'm in my 30s. I want to push myself to do things that I'm
You're doing
scared
so
of.
good. You're doing so good.
Thank you so much. And I love to be creative. I love to make things, and I obviously love to think about fantasy books and read. So I thought it was a good marriage of a lot of my interests and a good way to, grow and develop as a person, which is important. So I said yes, and then we started talking about, what book series we might want to tackle first. I think we were both always pretty aligned that we wanted to do big series, and a lot of the formatting stuff I think came really naturally and were like ideas that we were like, yes, about 5 chapters at a time.
It came together pretty quick.
Yeah, 1 book per season, several seasons on a series, like that kind of stuff. And then I think for the most part, we were deliberating between doing like Aragon. I think Harry Potter was in the running.
Yeah.
I think First Law trilogy, right?
Yeah, that was
in the running.
That was in the running, and then we had floated some other ideas, but those were the main
those
three.
were the main ones. We talked like very briefly about Wheel of Time, but we had just finished reading it in our book club, and we were like not ready to pick that up again. I need a little distance from that for like a hot second.
It's a big one.
Yes, and it seemed daunting.
That would have been our whole. That's all we would have done.
Yes, and I think it felt important to start with something that we both were very connected to, and that we knew the subject matter really well. Frankly, there's a little bit of comfort in that. We're a little scared.
It's a good dip our toe, and also there was some like real world things. Paolini had just gotten his sci-fi book out a year before we started talking about this.
He was kind of in the like it was on the brain a little bit,
and it was really cool because that's what we decided. They were like, we're gonna do a Disney Plus show, so we're like, well, let's just keep
apparently everyone's us thinking about Aragon right now, and I think the other thing that really sealed the deal is as soon as it came up, and I don't know that we forgot this necessarily, but I was like, Dane, I think this was the first book you ever recommended to me when we were children. Like we both liked fantasy, and you were like, oh, you like Harry Potter? I think you'd really like this book about a dragon, Aragon. That's what Dane sounded like when he was a child. That's canon. Just so everybody knows.
So you have to do all my young child voice.
Great.
How cool.
I know it feels crazy, but I'm like, well, if the people want to know.
Well, thank you, Alyssa and DC. You sound very nice.
Yes. You can tell we're still a small podcast because we're like, oh my God, we're obsessed. Who's this girl?
Thank you.
So what did you think about this section?
I'm not gonna lie. The Roran chapter stood out to me. I feel like his headspace and the people of Carvajal I love. They seem tight.
Definitely close-knit community. I like to read about that. I have a couple lingering questions, obviously, about their society and its values, but hopefully that gets answered later. Obviously, Roran's going to be a big part of our story moving forward if you got a whole ass POV. I'm very, very excited for that. I love that we're getting more like Game of Thrones-y kind of in the like political bent of Aragon's plotline in this book so far. So I'm really excited to see like how he's going to navigate all of that, if he's going to wise up overnight. We'll see. I will say, like, with this new POV, I think it's the first thing I ever read in my life that had a second POV character. Again,
really?
I was like 10. So yes. But I think for me, it was just like, oh shit, this is what a book can be. And I was like, immediately hooked all over again. So I'm excited to be here again, like digging into that, getting to know Roran.
You know, the cool thing about going back to Carvajal alongside the political stuff, opening like Game of Thrones, is POVs open up the world, right? Because you get a different perspective. But alongside that, adding in more of this politics stuff also does the same thing. So it feels like this one set of 5 chapters just like blew open the entire world so quickly.
Yeah.
it's such a different feel already than the other book.
Yeah, I'd agree for sure.
Well, I think that's all I got for this episode. Are you ready?
Yes,
All right.
let's call it.
Well, thank you for listening and starting another journey with us as we read Eldest. We would really appreciate you. And if you'd like to rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts, support on Patreon, or do any of that stuff, awesome. And you can also check out our social media at Is This Just Fantasy Pod on TikTok or at Just Fantasy Pod on Insta and Twitter. If you have any questions for further episodes or you just want to write to us about the podcast, we'd love to hear from you, maybe answer some questions.
Yeah.
And you can email us at isthisjustfantasypod@gmail.com.
Yes, and if you want to keep pace and read along with us, on the next episode, we're going to be covering Chapter 6, Saphira's Promise, through Chapter 10, Hrothgar's Gift. Love gifts.
I love gifts.
Okay, I don't love gifts as much as you do. I don't know why I said that.
We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. Come on and listen to us next time. Find out what our deep dive will be. Thanks for catching our show.